Shalom. This week we have two sedros again. We have Acharie Mot and Kedoshim. These are two of the most exciting sedros because they're very familiar to us. Acharie Mot opens up with the discussion of the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash during Yom Kippur. This is what we spend our Musaf on Yom Kippur on, and most of us are in shul for Musaf on Yom Kippur, so we're very familiar with this whole service. Its majesty and its grandeur is really breathtaking. This Shabbos, it pays to sit down and really read through the areas of Acharie Mot. Not only that, but as we enter into Kedoshim, some of our most familiar mitzvos, Dvar Torah Acharie, not hating somebody, loving converts, are found. Another exciting sedra. This Shabbos, it's a good thing that we switched the clocks, so we have plenty of time this Shabbat afternoon to learn, because there's a lot to learn this Shabbat, and it's going to be an exciting Shabbos. I'm telling you, this Shabbos, nothing better than to sit down and really read through the sedra. As we learn through our sedra and Acharie Mot, we find an interesting prohibition, one of the 613, that we're not so familiar with only because we don't know of it today. It's the prohibition against giving your child over to Molech. Molech is one of the avodah zaras, is one of the prohibitions, and let me explain to you what happens. Rashi explains, we're going to get into an argument between Rashi and Ramban, that basically what happens is, and this is Rashi's opinion, in a minute we'll get to the Ramban, Rashi says you hand your child over to a priest of Molech, and again, Molech is a form of idolatry, and the priest takes your child and walks him through fire. On bare feet, walks him through the fire. The child is seriously injured by this. This is the prohibition of Molech. You have to imagine what kind of sicko takes his kid and puts him through fire. The Ramban, though, disagrees with Rashi. The Ramban says that's not exactly what happens. The father hands his child over to the priest, and on his own accord, the child walks through the fire. The priest then takes the child and brings him through the fire. Now, to understand the machlokas, the argument between Rashi and Ramban, is a little beyond the scope of this video. It's a halachic disagreement, and I'd like to focus on just the first step as the beginning of an explanation. The first step to explaining any argument between our commentators is really finding out where they where they agree. Finding that first step as to where they agree. Once we know where they agree, then we can only then can we begin to figure out where they disagree. And what they both agree on is that there's a fault that the father has in handing his child over to the priest. They both agree that that's a fault the father has, and they both agree that that's the first step to this prohibition. It's only after the child is handed over by the father that we begin to see an argument develop. If we take that first step, that father handing over his child, and the fault ascribed to the father for that, we can understand a very valuable lesson for us all. The idea that a father, one of his main responsibilities is to be a role model for his child. For a father to play the role, show his child exactly the right path to take, to show him the derech Torah, the path of the Torah, and all of its demands, and all of the privileges that come to one who observes the Torah. That's the father's responsibility. The father who violates this prohibition of Molech hands his child over, not only shirks his responsibility of raising his child in the ways of the Torah, but actively hands his child over to another to draw him away from the Torah. That is a serious fault. Not only is that a fault of avodah zarah, it's a fault of the father in giving up his responsibilities of raising his child. And while we look at this prohibition of Molech and we say, how could anyone do a horrific action such as this in terms of giving his child over to Molech, we have to ask ourselves a very serious question. Are we too guilty of shirking our responsibilities in raising our children? None of us, chas v'shalom, are giving our children over to idolatry. But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, are we ensuring that we're playing that role of role model to our children? Are we ensuring that not only are we making sure that they don't stray from the Torah, but we ensure the fact that they are keeping the laws of the Torah, that they find them attractive, that there's something that they want to do. That's our responsibility as parents. That's our responsibility as a father. And that's the first responsibility and the first fault we ascribe to the father who hands over his son to Molech. Again, none of us are worried about handing our children over to Molech. That's not something that's a plague, attacking our society. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're attracting our kids to the Torah, that we're showing them the right way and playing that role of role models. Have a good Shabbos.